And then he says, very interesting presentation. Thank you. Dan Barubi, student, junior political science. Why does the presence of polonium halos, which are unexplained by contemporary evolutionary theory, necessarily contradict and disprove the evidence supporting the current theory, such as the presence of uranium halos, which do indicate an age of several billion years? Well, why does the presence of polonium halos dispute the conventional view? Again, remember that the conventional view is that this rock is a part of a giant granite formation, and these granite formations extend far into the depths of the earth. So overall, we've got a rock formation that is cooling, from top to bottom or from bottom to top, whichever the case may have supposedly been. We've got something that is taking, over the period of total cooling, a vast period of time. So if polonium is there, the top to the bottom, that is, we find the polonium halos in the granites today from the top to the bottom, then we have to explain how the polonium could remain there if indeed a long period of cooling took place. That's why we illustrated the Alka-Seltzer and the water. The bubbles are there. If indeed something, is the size of this auditorium and it's filled with water, we start to cool it. How long is it going to take to cool? Well, it's going to take a long period of time. That's the same way it is with the rocks. So the polonium halos in the rocks, though, can't wait around. The polonium is going to disappear very quickly. So unless you isolate, unless you condense, solidify, crystallize, create very rapidly, of course, the radioactivity is gone, and there would be no radioactive halo in the rock itself. I'm going to give you another example of that in just a minute using this Polaroid film. A question from the same student. Another question. Why does the inability of the scientific community to produce granite rock or spontaneously generate life necessarily disprove the theory of evolution any more than the inability of a physicist to spontaneously generate matter necessarily disprove the laws of physics? It's a good question. Well, first of all, you must understand that I don't know of any physicists who are out here who are claiming anything about the latter part of this question. I'll read it again. Why does the inability of the scientific community to produce granite rock or spontaneously generate life necessarily disprove the theory of evolution any more than the inability of a physicist to spontaneously generate matter necessarily disprove the laws of physics? Well, see, in physics, the basic law is matter can't be created or destroyed. So there's nothing to disprove there. Matter can't be created or destroyed, unless you want to go back to the initial part of the Big Bang. So there's nothing to disprove. But now, with respect to the first part of the question, why does the inability of the scientific community to produce granite rock or spontaneously generate life disprove the theory of evolution? You see, evolution claims that it had to be. Life you here tonight are here supposedly because of the chance occurrence of spontaneous generation of life sometime in the primeval past in some primeval ocean. It's a claim that is made part and parcel, a fundamental part of evolution. This granite that I'm holding here, this piece of biotite that we've shown and talked about tonight, it didn't come out of nowhere, supposedly, as far as evolution is concerned. It is an integral part of the Earth. It came as a result of the slow cooling of magma with the uniformitarian principle. The physical laws that govern the crystallization of this rock, you see, are inevitably the same that exist here tonight. So, if you want to prove what you're saying is true, if you want to test as to whether that theory is really based on a valid scientific principle, all you've got to do is take it into the laboratory in the here and now, melt the granite, let it cool, let it solidify, let it crystallize, and you should be able to, on the basis of the evolutionary theory and the acceptance of its uniformitarian principle, you should be able to reproduce that piece of granite. Because you see, supposedly, 4 billion years ago, or 4.5 billion years ago, or 3 billion years ago, the laws were identical to what they are today. And may I suggest to you that something... Yes. Why don't you come up to the microphone?
My name is Larry Taylor. I'm professor of geology at UT. Who said you cannot form a granite in the laboratory? It's been proven for 25 years by hundreds of publications, and just because you're ignorant of the publications doesn't mean that they can't be done. I can do it in my laboratory. People all over the world can.
You know, I'm just so happy you came forward tonight. I'm absolutely gratified because I'll give you the piece of granite. How long is it going to take you to do it?
Under controlled cooling rates, you can form it in about a week.
Can we all come back in a week and see it? Just like this?
On that approximate grain size, not that size, obviously, it would have to be much smaller.
Oh, wait a minute. What was this about the grain size now?
That approximate grain size is controlled as a function of the cooling rate, the kinetics of the situation, the crystallization and growth. And you can form that coarseness of granite minerals. You can form those mineral compositions with a cooling rate of about 1/2 degree per hour crystallizing.
I'm going to show you a piece of biotite, a piece of granite which contains the polonium halos. Why don't you look at it? How long do you think it would take you to do this one?
The grain size, and I don't know what the exact mineral compositions are there, but I estimate the same approximate cooling rate. Anything slower than 1/2 degree per hour over the crystallization range of approximately 200 degrees over which these minerals crystallize will be sufficient to do this.
And we'll, in a week...
And people at UCLA, at Caltech, at Chicago, at MIT, at Harvard, at wherever you want to go, can do this. So I don't see that's a big problem. And Frank Press is from MIT, and that's where, I mean, he would be speaking to that. But I think more properly that the reason why you're not getting a rebuttal to this is that people just don't want to rebuttal it. It doesn't, perhaps, you know, it's so well established in literature.
And now, is this the first time that you've heard of this test?
Yes, it is.
I see. So you think that in 1 week you can get this piece of granite back in your laboratory?
I can give you, many publications.
No, I'm not talking about publications. I'm saying you have claimed tonight that you can do it. Is that true?
I don't have my laboratory set up right for that, doing that particular thing. I'm working on basalts, but yes, you can do that.
I think
I'll tell you of a laboratory where I could go and do it, and that would be at Johnson Space Center. They do that down there now.
Now, you've changed the topic just a little bit, and I think the audience needs to be aware that you've gone from a granite to a basalt, and they need to understand the difference. And the reason they need to understand the difference is in my book. At the Arkansas Creation Trial, the ACLU geologist, Dr. Brent Dalrymple, took the witness stand. And in the process of testifying about the falsification test, he testified at length about granite and the fact that there was no problem, supposedly, in imitating the granite, and he brought out the Kilauea lava lake. If you read his testimony very carefully, you find two things. First of all, he admits that you cannot. He does not know of anyone, and he was a person who was there who had studied my results over a considerable period of time before he testified. He knew of no one who had successfully synthesized a hand-sized piece of granite in the laboratory. In fact, he admitted, as I've just read, that it was a meaningful test. But now, in order to change the subject just a little bit, and to present a plausibility argument that it was possible, on the witness stand, he brought up the Kilauea lava lake material, which is a basalt. And he said it resembled a granite, and he used that as an indication that, yes, sometime if you had a sufficiently good apparatus, it would be possible to synthesize a granite. But what he didn't say, and what you didn't say just then, was that there's an awful lot of difference between the grain size of the basalt you're talking about and the granite crystal, which I have right here.
I beg to differ tremendously. That there can be grain size within a basalt flow, within the Hawaiian flows, that is of the same grain size as you have there. That can form rather rapidly. But regardless of, I'm not talking about basalt. I don't know what you're
You mentioned basalt.
I said what I've been working on recently is basalts.
Well, I'll have to comment a little bit further on what you just said.
Well, okay, but what I'm saying is that you can make the grain size of the minerals, you can make the mineral compositions without any problem in the laboratory when you're geared up to do this particular type of thing. It takes controlled oxygen